Good morning, everybody. I'm Carl Schondorfer, the president of Tera, and I'd like you to meet Pam. Pam is the vice president. Susan is our secretary, and Jeff is our treasurer. Well, you can't really see it from here. I just want to give you a brief introduction to Tera, just for the new people. The older folks here probably know all about it and give this speech better than I can. But yeah, okay. Tera, we have a board, and the board people are here. Board, B-O-A-R-D, not B-O-R-E-D. And they consist of the executive committee and the area representatives. The area representatives are really the key people for Tera, because they're the link between the committees and the individual residents. So anything that occurs, the vehicle for them to talk to you is for us to talk to you is through the area representatives. And any feedback from the residents should go through the area representatives. And now I'm going to ask Pam to introduce the area representatives.
We need to cancel the general meeting first.
Pam tells me, we're going to talk about this later, but Pam tells me that we have to cancel the general meeting. We'll get into this later. Now, Pam, do you want to introduce the area representatives?
Okay, pressing the button. Is it working?
No. You got a green light.
I got a green light. Okay, green light, red light. Okay, I cannot see. It's not working. It's not working. Flashing.
It's flashing. Use his. Let me work on it.
Okay, we were talking what the functions of the area representatives are, and there are 6 floors in A and B building. So it used to be called the floor representatives, but now we've changed it in the bylaws to the area representatives. Give that to him.
Is that? Oh, we can't hear you. You need to get it
You
close.
can't hear this one either?
Close to the mouth, please. Close to the mouth.
It's on. Okay. The area representatives are for the A building, the B building, the villas, and OBT, Oakbrook Terrace. And the responsibility of the area reps are to introduce yourself to new residents, provide them with a memo describing the duties of a representative. A representative will relay resident concerns about varying issues to the attention to the Tera board. So if you as a resident have something you need to discuss, call your floor area representative. Representatives also attend all board meetings, and they will distribute minutes to all the residents on your floor or villa. And they will also get your email address and make sure that you're either getting it through email or a physical copy in your slot. So please talk to your area rep about that. The area rep also will make personal observations regarding possible physical needs in your area, repairs, leaks, cleaning, etc. And you know, the one big thing is you gotta close the laundry room door because of a fire regulation, so make sure you do that. And let me find my list. We went out of order here, so. Okay, our area reps include John Eskew, who represents A1, A2 is Deanna Horsewood. A3, Simon Stapleton. B1, Susan Horsewood. B2, Deanne Zaski. B3, Kay Dettel. The Villas, Nancy Peterson. And at this point, I'm the lucky person to do Oakbrook Terrace, but can't get up there, so I can't talk to anybody. But that's a vice president responsibility. And the committees, we have a number of committees. Let me find my sheet. The culinary, and we have the privilege of having the head of culinary here today who's going to be speaking to you. But the resident who's in charge of the committee is Nancy Allen. We have the landscape committee. It hasn't met for a while, but we have Ed Eckert as the chair, and I'm sure he'll get things moving. We have the Japanese Garden, represented by Becky Poole. Now, she's not officially a committee, but she would be underneath the landscape, but that's her baby. Library, Lynn Smith. Life Engagement, Linda Shooter. Maintenance and Security, Bill Link. I know they've already met for a committee meeting and are doing great. We have the Welcoming Committee with David McDonald, and that committee is just getting off the ground, so I'm not sure how everything's going with them. The Woodshop Committee is Charles Duke, and the Columbarium, where some of us will be resting the rest of our lives, is Dave Lennon. And then we have the Employee Christmas Gift Fund, and Kay Thomas chairs that. Arts and Crafts, Doris Clark. And those are the official committees. If you look on the treasurer's report, you'll see a few other things in there. It's more convenient for the residents to put their money into Tera than open their own account because of small funds that come in. But those are not official Tera committees. Okay. I did.
Okay, I'm on. Jeff, do you want to come up here for a minute and just give a brief status of what our treasury is?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Tolman, and I'm the treasurer for this year. The ending balance of all funds with all the accounts and the different committees for January 31st of 2021 is $68,652.70. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Okay, I guess that about does it for the Tera. Now I'd like to go into the questions. We got some questions from Tera, and let me go into these. First one is the Tera tax exempt status. I put a typo in earlier minutes, just so the official word from the IRS. Donors cannot deduct contributions they make under your IRC section 107C2. We're actually at 107C3, C7. We are pleased to tell you we determined you're tax exempt from federal income tax under the Internal Revenue Code, IRC, section 501C7. Now what that means is Tera, the Tera organization, does not have to pay income taxes. The Tera organization does have to file an income tax report. It means also that people who make contributions to Tera cannot deduct that money from their income taxes. So the $5 that you pay to Tera dues, or the money you give to the committees, or the money you give to the yeah, the committees, the Christmas fund cannot be deducted from your income tax. So we are a 501c7. Okay. Now, we've had some lengthy discussions about the bylaws versus our meetings. According to, let me see, here it is. Oh, first one is the Tera mission statement. Yes, we got to address that. The Tera mission statement on one of our last minutes refers to statement number 4 under the purpose. Communicate and cooperate with the administration of Tryon Estates and ACTS Retirement Life Communities in ACTS Incorporated in promoting, improving, and maintaining a healthful, enjoyable, active, and useful community consistent with the ACTS mission statement. Okay. The words that were on the last minutes were cut and pasted from that paragraph. Sorry if there was any confusion. The next question is, please explain on how you intend to comply going forward with the bylaws, Article 10, Section 4, with respect to residents having the right to attend and speak at all board meetings and, of course, general meetings. Necessary routine business can obviously be carried on, but the January minutes indicate discussions and actions well beyond anything necessary on an immediate basis and definitely worthy of residents' discussion prior to definitive action. Well, we got a problem here because according to the bylaws, residents have to be, should be available to speak and attend our meetings, both the board meetings and the general meetings. Unfortunately, we don't have enough space here. So what are we going to do? Can we cancel our meetings and just forget everything and go underground? Or should we adhere to the aforementioned purpose of the Tera board, which is to interface between the residents and the Tryon Estates management and work for the residents? What we've done, just highlights, in these meetings where we couldn't, unfortunately, bring the residents, we brought in some new committee members. We arranged for a financial review of our treasury. We created a welcoming committee. Some of our area representatives retired or left or whatever, so we brought in new area representatives. Some of our area representatives came up with an idea to register pets for the fire department. We're spreading that information around. We arranged for the distribution of flags that were given to us by the Veterans Committee. And of course, we collected the Tera dues. These were done, unfortunately, without the direct involvement of the residents. We would like to have the residents involved, but we can't do that. Now we have two choices. Should we all go to sleep and hibernate until we have enough space where we can comfortably meet? We need, for the board meetings, we need room for maybe 25 or 30 people. For the general meetings, we could fill up this auditorium. Now, the question in my mind is, what are we doing? My vote, my feeling is, we should continue to service the residents because that's our purpose. I'm welcoming the opinion from everybody, not only the people in this room, but the people who are listening to this on TV, to send an email to me or put a note in my mailbox of what your druthers are. Should we just put our feet up on the desk? I'm being a little funny. Just go to sleep now until we open up here as far as the virus is concerned, or shall we continue to service our residents? Okay, that's about it. Another comment I have is that I got is dog poop. I guess some people aren't cleaning up after their animals. And what can we do about that? Unless you know who the person is, we really can't do too much. But if you do identify the person, you can tell me or tell Dee, and Dee will speak harshly to them. Well, you know, we do have a policy that says residents who have animals have to take care of them and clean up after them. There have been instances, unfortunately, I don't want to get into the gory details of this, whereas we've had a mess in the hallways, and there are plenty of times out in the paths out here on the outside property in the common areas where the people have left a mess. So please find out who it is, and we'll talk to Dee. On a recent comment, I mentioned about Wi-Fi upgrade. Now, the Axe Corporation realizes that we could have some improvements in our Wi-Fi. And one of the residents asked what the status of that is. And the message that came back is, it's still a work in progress, so details are still shifting. The main change is upgrading the speed of our complementary Wi-Fi to 12 millibits per second from 5. The network team is still deciding how to configure the back end so residents can easily join our devices. We're planning a rollout in the first few communities in February, in the Northeast and Chesapeake. These initial communities will give us a better understanding of how the rest of the organization will get the upgrade. So the Axe Corporation seriously recognizes the fact that we need help, and they will be working on it. They are working on it. Other things that have come out from the Axe Corporation is they're planning on increasing the range of these white push buttons that you have, which right now they're still in the, it's still around just in the local area here. They say it's going to be increased to the whole campus. I reminded them that Tryon Estates is 215 plus acres, but that's a bit of a joke. They're also going to be providing at some time, and I have no schedule for these things, they're still all work in progress, and something like an Echo Dot for your apartments where you can communicate, use that. And there's going to be a motion detector available. Now, so if, let's say at 10 o'clock in the morning, if they don't detect any motion in your department, somebody might call up. Now, this may not be as necessary for couples, but for single people, they might find it very available. And again, you can opt out of any of these things. You can put the Echo Dot in your storage room and never use it or anything like that. So that's about all I have. Now I'm going to introduce.
May I say something?
Sure.
This meeting today is not considered a board meeting. It should have been a general meeting, and since we have no room for it, that has to be canceled. And I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we agree that there is no general meeting today.
Well, you can't make a motion because according to the pending bylaws, we can't make a motion unless the residents are involved. So,
We have the board here that can do that.
well, make your motion. All in favor of Pam's motion, say aye.
There'll be,
I see 3 ayes and opposed. Oh, okay.
okay.
Who
So
will second the motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was supposed to be a general meeting inviting everybody, and we could not do that, obviously because of the COVID issue. And therefore, we have to say that we can't do it, cancel it, and go on with other information that will not be recorded because this was not announced that this would be a board meeting with residents. And that's all that would be in the minutes. Got that, Susan?
Susan, you take your minutes of this?
That's it for your minutes. We need to
Well,
take a vote. All
Do I have a second for that motion?
We did.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
The motion is carried.
Okay. Now we are officially in Tera information mode, and I think you were ready to announce. Gordy, was it?
I was. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Gordy.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here this morning. I want to start off very strangely and tell you that the coronavirus has been very good to me. I know that sounds strange, but I have the potential of 3 grandchildren during this time. I had one born in May. I had one born 2 weeks ago, and I have one coming in the end of March. So the coronavirus has been very good to me personally. Professionally, it's been horrible, and I know for you as well. So I have a few things that I wanted to just share with you pertaining to what culinary has been going through, and then I have a few questions that have been submitted that I'll answer as well. First of all, I think where we have been impacted the most has probably been in the staffing between cooks, dishwashers, and servers, and our management team. We've had a number of employees that have been either out because they've tested positive or they've been exposed to somebody who had tested positive. So it's kind of been an ongoing cyclical kind of thing for us. You get a couple back, you lose a couple. A couple of weeks ago, I was speaking with a resident, and they were asking how we were doing, and I said, oh, by Monday, we get everybody back. And then over the weekend, we lost 7 more. So it kind of never stops. When you think you're getting them back, you lose a few more. So I've stopped saying I'm getting them back because it's almost like a death wish. Part of what we go through, about a year ago, if I can kind of go back to the very beginning, about a year ago, on a Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock, we were told that by 4 o'clock, we were going to serve everybody in their apartments. So we had 2 hours notice to figure out how we were going to go from multiple dining venues to room service for everybody at one time. We didn't know what you wanted for dinner that night. We had to figure all that out. And so we set things into motion very quickly. Myself, Chef Dan, Paula, Wendy, Matt, most of us have been in the restaurant business all of our lives. And so we kind of drew on experiences that we had, and we tried to figure out what we could do to make this happen. So as a daily routine, if I can kind of give you an overview of what we do, at about 11 o'clock, we start we have people that go into A building and B building and start collecting menus. Once those menus are brought back, we sit down with a resident unit directory and we highlight everybody in the directory that we have menus for, so we know who we don't have menus for. And then we begin making phone calls, which takes a couple of hours throughout the afternoon, of all the people that we don't have menus for. And I hate to say it, but typically it's the same people every day. When I spoke to our other communities about how they were doing it, they basically said if they don't turn in a menu, they don't get a meal. In my heart, I struggled with that. And so we decided to put things into place of how we were going to do it, not so much how our sister communities do things. So we bit the bullet and we spend time every afternoon, multiple people on phones, making calls, going over menu and choices. After all of the menus are accounted for, then we start taking smaller Post-it kind of notes where we write out everybody's menu, and those go on the boxes that we get prepped ready for the cooks to be able to fill. So some of our issues that we started with were when the coronavirus hit, the industry kind of went haywire. And I know most of you probably heard that on the news, but to feel it in person was really strange because within days or weeks at best, paper products were not available. Food items were not available. Things that we depended on every day were just gone. And basically what happened was all of the employees that work at these manufacturing plants weren't coming to work for whatever reason, whether they had stopped their manufacturing, whether the employees were sick, whether they were, whatever happened, all of the manufacturing of most of the goods that we rely on every day were down to about a 25% functioning rate at those manufacturing areas. So very quickly we found out that like our plastic clamshell to-go boxes were running very short. We were buying them by the gross as fast as we could because everything was saying they're no longer going to be available. By next week, you won't be able to find them. So we started buying them as quick as we could. Axe really recognized right away that all of us, out of our 28 or 29 locations, we were all kind of suffering through the same thing. So they ventured into an agreement with this company that produces these green containers that we bought. And they basically bought they contracted with a volume that they could send hundreds and hundreds of those boxes to every one of our Axe locations, which was a great opportunity because we didn't know what we were going to do in a week or two because we knew some of those products were no longer going to be available. And if you can't come down for your food and we've got to send it to you, we had to figure out a way to do that. So the green boxes were really a godsend at that point. Now they haven't, through the course of time, some of them didn't get returned, some of them were breaking, some of them were staining too bad. So we had to figure out what we were going to do to make them last. We've bought a number of rounds of them to make sure that we have plenty. Anybody who's on isolation or quarantine, we don't use them for. They get either the plastic or the more cardboardy kind of looking ones based on whatever is available. Food was the same kind of thing. We started getting notices right away of what things were not available. And it was amazing how many things. Several times we had to make menu changes at the last minute because we were notified that, different products were not being manufactured from those plants. Therefore, our providers weren't getting them and they weren't able to deliver them to us. So it was really a very strange time because I don't think any of us had ever experienced that in the past. But we figured out how to maneuver our way through all of those challenges. But it hasn't been easy, nevertheless. We are delivering about 340 meals per day. We're still, as far as it goes in Willowbrook Court and Oak Ridge Terrace, we're still serving those folks as well. But as far as independent living, we're delivering around 340 per day. Some of the struggles, and I'll get to this when I get to the questions because some of them pertain to this, but we have cooks that are putting food in the boxes. We've got servers that are gathering all those other odd items, your chips or your fruit or your drinks or your soup. You know, those things are all being prepared. But they've got to gather what each person is having on there. So, you know, they make a tally sheet. They see what it is they need. They go and get them. They bring them, and then they deliver. It's not foolproof. We've obviously seen that. We deal with the servers every day on trying to make sure that they're getting everything that they need. And before they walk out, you know, we say, do you have everything that you need? Did you get all of your soups? Did you get all of your drinks? Do you have your menus? Do you have your, you know, we're relying on people, and unfortunately there are errors. I hate that, but there are. But we're attempting to fix that every day. Many of those tickets have multiple entrees, 3 beverages, dessert, cookies, and fruit, all on one menu. And so when the server thinks they have what they have, you know, we've seen servers be sent back to the kitchen for cups of ice. We've seen them sent back to the kitchen for they didn't bring enough napkins. And all of that just kind of throws a wrench into everything else. If you've got that many to each server, you know, if they're running 10 or 12 at a time and they know they have 3 or 4 rounds to make, if in between those rounds they've got to go back for napkins or a cup of ice, you know, and I'm not saying they should have had it. They need to come back and get it. But some of it is just it prolongs the agony throughout the rest of the evening because it's a snowball effect. You know, if they get caught up on their first round, their second round is late, their third round is later, their fourth round is even later yet. And then the phone starts ringing, where's my food? And we understand that. But those are some of the challenges that we deal with. Some folks have asked about those green boxes and how we make sure they're sanitized. So let me tell you a little bit about what we do with them. And this is something that just we do. I don't know how the other communities handle them, but for us, we felt the best way to handle it was, you know, we pick them up every day and we keep them in a location until the end of the night. When every dish and glass and piece of silverware and pot and pan and everything else has been washed, our dish machine gets emptied, gets cleaned out, it gets reloaded with fresh water, fresh soap, and we only run the green boxes through. After they come through the machine, they get stacked on an air drying rack in a room where the fan runs throughout the evening so that they have an opportunity to dry throughout the night so that the next morning they're ready to go. And we basically have 2 rounds so that the ones that were cleaned last night are not the ones we used yesterday, obviously. They're ready for today. And so the ones that we used last night are in the hallway still being picked up right about now, and they'll be ready for tomorrow. And so that's kind of how, and so we shared that practice with some of our regional staff and some of our other communities, and some of them began doing that, and they saw that as a best practice, just to make sure that we were sanitizing them as proper, as best as could be done, again, to make sure that we weren't no food contamination to anybody else. One of the questions, when I get to it, I'll refer back to that, but the staining that takes place in some of them that we've had to throw away, I think is because of over the length of the time that folks are microwaving in them. If you're not familiar with a microwave, and that's one of my questions, but if food is warm, you don't need to microwave it in minutes, you know, or you're not going to be able to touch it. It's going to be that hot. If food is cold, obviously it takes longer to microwave to get it up to temp. But we're temping all of our food. In fact, one of my regionals was in the building this past week, and he temped our food on the line when we started, in the middle of the meal, and at the end of the meal. and all of our food items met the standard of temperature for that item throughout the entire evening in all 3 of those time frames. Now, once we put those things in a box and snap it and seal it, when it comes to meat, sometimes, unfortunately, it continues to cook. And that's something that we're trying to deal with. I can't undercook it to be able to send it to you knowing it's going to continue to cook, because then I don't meet my standard in the kitchen. And those are some issues that we deal with. It's a struggle, but from a food safety standpoint, it's not something I can do anything differently about. On October the 7th, I mailed out to everyone who's on our email list the always available entrees, so that if the 3 that are listed on today's menu are not something that meets your preference, you have others to choose from. I had to give that also to one of my regionals last week, and as I was calculating those things, there are 13 entrees available for home delivery or takeout, 15 if you're doing dine-in because of the steak and the omelet. Those 2 are additional if you're eating in the bistro. Some other changes that I want to make you aware of. The trout, it's funny, we have this little saying around here at Tryon Estates, whenever in doubt, order the trout. But we're only getting about 1 or 2 orders a day. And so it's kind of hard for us to continue to keep that on the menu when it's really not being ordered by anyone or very few folks. So as a change, and I don't have a date for you, but soon, the trout is going to be changed to salmon. And we're going to be offering that as a nightly option instead of the trout. Our steak, our flat iron steak that has been available in the bistro is going to be changed to a filet. So those are 2 entree changes that we're going to be making changes to if they pertain to you. We have about 100 employees in culinary. We start at 5 a.m. and we finish about 10 p.m. And there's about $30,000 worth of food on hand at all times. And that's part of what we do just to make sure that we always have what we need. We have a new menu cycle that started on January 25th, a couple of weeks ago. We're into the winter cycle. The nutritional information for those menus I emailed out as well. It's also available in the black notebook on the comment card table as a hard copy if you want to look there, as well as the cycle menu is there as well. So then I was given a couple of questions by Carl, and I thought I'd just address them quickly. There's a couple of here are just their comments. Thank you for you and your team. You're doing an amazing job. We love the room service, in quotes. All of the choices, everything's been yummy. Servers are friendly. The holidays were not our first choice to be under these conditions, but we made it delicious. Thanksgiving was wonderful. We had the abundance of turkey, which enabled us to have turkey sandwiches later, and that was certainly our attempt at sending leftovers along, because that's what Thanksgiving is all about, right? It's having leftovers. The surprise Christmas cookies were another bonus again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The question then became a USDA grade of beef. What do you serve at TE? And has it changed? What was it 6 years ago? We buy USDA choice meat. It's one level down from prime, and the only difference really is the marbling, the amount of marbling in the meat. Prime has a little bit more marbling. Choice has a little less marbling. But that is the standard for all of our ACT communities. We have, that has been our standard for years and years and years. We've not changed that. As I started with the company in 1984. For those, if there's new folks listening that don't know, I started at our Boca Raton communities in 1984. There's 3 of them there. I worked in all 3 of those. In 86, I opened Indian River Estates in Vero Beach. In 89, I opened Indian River West, which is on the same campus but a separate community. In 95, I went back down to Boca and took over Edgewater Point Estates. And then in 2001, I came here, and I go on record all the time and say, this is my favorite property out of all of them. Give yourselves a hand, yes, because it is truly because of the residents. You know, we've often said, and I ran a restaurant for a number of years before I came to work for Axe, but any one of us in culinary could be working in a restaurant or in the restaurant industry. We choose to work here because of relationships. It truly is. It makes a difference every day coming to work, because I know I'm spending my day with friends and with people that it's a joy to take care of, because it's not just have a nice day and you might come back to my restaurant in another month or whatever, but you're here and we get to see you and make a difference and help in that every day. So, and I know, and I speak for my staff, it is amazing. If you had the opportunity to come into my kitchen and spend time with my staff, not only would you love them the way I do, but you would find out the longevity for many of them that are in this community. I have diet aides that are servers in Willowbrook and Oak Ridge Terrace that have been here over 20 years. I have morning servers like Debbie, who have been here over 25 years. We have cooks that have been here 17 years, 19 years, 22 years. Chef Dan is on 22 years. It's just amazing. Tera, one of our sous chefs, Melissa, our other sous chef, 20 years employees. Longevity is amazing in our industry, because when you learn how those people work and how they affect every day, but better than that, they learn your needs and your preferences, and it makes it so much easier to work with folks that take that personal interest and care every day. So I really appreciate the fact that we have those things here at Tryon Estates. Let me see. Have you had problems obtaining food? We talked about that already. Can you give some hints on warming up the food, microwave settings? And basically, really what I want to say is just don't do it too long. You know, if it's warm already, you may only need 30 or 45 seconds to get it, hot, so you're eating it. If you leave it in there for a couple of minutes, one, you're not going to be able to eat it. Two, you're probably ruining the integrity of the product. And three, we'll probably have to throw your container away, because that's where a lot of that staining comes in at. And we really notice most of that with red sauces. I think spaghettis or some of those kind of things, it literally leaves an orange stain on the container, and then at that point, they're not usable anymore. When someone orders undercooked pizza, how do you suggest it be prepared? Uncooked. How does someone order an uncooked pizza?
We do.
You order an uncooked? Yes. And does it come?
Take it home. We have it. Talk to my wife, Jean.
Yeah? Yeah. So my answer was, put it in the oven at 350. 350. And it probably doesn't take too long. In our little convection, now it's a 550 machine, it's a 2-minute cycle. So they come through on a conveyor belt. So if you're putting it in your oven, I would check it after 6-7 minutes and just make sure that it's, if you like it more done and the crust crispier, leave it in a little longer. But anyways, that's my choice. But I didn't shows you what I know, right? I didn't know anybody was getting an uncooked pizza, and here's Carl right behind me. We're going to talk later. Everyone. Are the menus dictated by Axe, and can you make modifications? I know I've had this conversation with folks over the years many times, but I'll do it again in a quick version. Axe has a corporate dietitian, and she writes a house menu for all Axe communities, and it comes out electronically to all of us. It's part of our cycle menu, our 4-week cycle menu. On that, it has one entree, one side, and a dessert, sometimes a salad, just depends on what her makeup of the menu is. So that is part of our house menu, if you will, for Willowbrook and Oak Ridge Terrace. If we leave those items on the menu, which we have the option if we want to take them off or leave them on. But if we leave them on, we just kind of incorporate them into our greater menu that we write. So all those other items that are on the menu, if we looked at today's menu and had 3 entrees and 4 sides, and, one of those might be the dietitians, one of those might be the dietitians, but it may not be. If they put scrapple on the menu in Pennsylvania, we typically take it off because we know it's not something our people are probably going to eat here. That's why our people aren't going to eat it. Thank you, Pam. That was perfect. Scrapple is like pig intestines. And they grill it, and they eat it, and they love it. So it's different. Pennsylvania does things, Florida does things, we do things. It's just different. So every region, every community has the opportunity to write their menus based on their community's likes and dislikes, preferences, okay? So we do get a skeleton menu from the corporate dietitian. Whether we choose to use it or not is up to us. Our local dietitian, Linda Wozniak, once we write our menus, she just signs off on them as nutritionally sound. And so that's just something that we do. So yes, Axe writes a menu. Yes, we have the choice of using it or not, but it's in a small scale. Just to hope that made sense. How many employees work in culinary? I already said about 100. What food is prepared at Tryon Estates and what is already made up? We don't really buy any food made up. I was trying to think when I read this. I guess one of the examples is like cream chip beef. We do buy Stouffer's cream chip beef because, one, it's a very good product. It comes in frozen. We can keep it in the freezer until we need it. It comes in trays that serve about 20 or 30 at a time. So we just pull out how many trays we need. We heat them up, and they're ready to go. So that's about the only item I can think of that we buy rather than make. We can't make it as cheap as we can buy it, and it's a better product, we think, than what we could make. So it doesn't make sense why not to buy that Stouffer's cream chip beef. But when it comes to entrees or sides or soups or those kind of things, we make all that stuff in-house. It's funny, we talk about, Axe talks about our kitchens being scratch kitchens. And what that really means is we try to make everything from scratch that we can. Some things, you can't beat a Ghirardelli chocolate brownie mix. That triple chocolate one is to die for. And so there are certain box mixes like that we may use rather than making from scratch. Some things we make from scratch. Some things we do use a product just because we think it's better. Are the green containers being returned? I talked about that earlier. Soups, it says, has the recipes changed? Have the ingredients changed? Someone feels they're not as good as they used to be. And I said, there are no recipes for soups. And I kind of wanted that just to go out. All of our cooks, and again, the longevity of our cooks that are in the kitchen are the same ones that have been there for years. So the same people are still making all the soups the way they've always made them. And I'll go on record to say, I want you to know the majority of our soups are made from leftovers because, one, they're the best that way, and two, we're being good stewards of your money. And that's really what our focus is all about, okay? We try not to let anything go to waste. That's our only avenue for leftovers, okay? So if we don't want to throw something away, we have to figure out how to use it in a soup because we don't use leftovers in entrees. We don't use leftovers at lunch. We don't use leftovers at breakfast. If we have bacon left over at breakfast, the chef will hang on to that and he'll either use it in the green beans or if he's got a BLT coming up or, there's avenues to use something like that. But just to reproduce an item as an item, we would never reheat the bacon today for tomorrow. That you'd never see that. But if we have leftover sausage and leftover bacon from today, that may be going on our meat lovers pizza. That kind of a thing, okay? Just like you would do at home, right? You make good use of your items. The other thing is we only have 72 hours. Our law, our code says if you don't utilize a leftover within 72 hours, it has to be discarded. And it's got a certain, we've got all these food codes that we live by, how long it can be in certain temperature zones. So you have to get it out of a danger zone when you're cooling a product down. If it's 140 degrees, you've only got 2 hours to get it down to 100 and 2 hours to get it down to 70, and then it's got to be below 40, and then you can only hold it for 72 hours. So those are the kind of things that we deal with. We have all the equipment in the kitchen. We've got blast chiller that we can put a hot product in and cool things down rapidly. I used this example a number of years ago, but way back in the day, back in the early 80s, when some of these codes were coming out, we had a piece of a prime rib. It was probably a 2-pound chunk that was left from a Sunday afternoon. And one of our cooks wrapped it up in film and then covered it in foil and stuck it in the freezer, or the cooler, I guess it was. Anyways, we came in the next morning, and just as a test for ourselves, we unwrapped that piece of meat and temped it, and it was 90 degrees. 24 hours after we put it in the cooler, it was still 90 degrees, which means it sat in a danger zone 20 hours and just grew bacteria. That's how people used to get sick, because we didn't have a lot of the food rules that we do now about how to handle leftovers, how to cool down products quickly so that they're not allowing those dangerous things to grow in those products. And then we serve them and somebody gets sick and you wonder why. And we've certainly, I think our industry as a whole over the years has really learned a lot. But the HACCP analysis that we always use, it's HACCP, it's a Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points. Those are those temperature logs that we do every day. And we do them on every line, and we do them in every refrigerator, and every dishwasher, and every pot and pan sink, and it's endless. But we do that to protect you with food safety. That's part of our responsibility. Restaurants don't do that. We've often said that, it's potluck when you go out to eat somewhere, and we all do it. But when you live in a place like this, where healthcare is what we provide it in all aspects of life, and so that we make sure that we're keeping you as safe as possible all the time. One or two left. Let me see. Somebody says if a certain bread is mentioned on the menus, why do they not get it sometimes? Are we not preparing enough? And I guess my question is, what menu are you looking at? Because it could be my fault. I have been asked by my chefs not to put the bread on the menu on channel 900, right? And that's where we are today. We're on channel 900. I put all the menus on channel 900. I type them all in there. And inevitably, I put the bread on because it's on my menu, and I'm not thinking about it. But I'm putting, like, this new cycle menu, which started on the 25th of January and goes until February the 21st. I put those in 2.5 weeks ago. The bread that we offer on February 12th may have changed from when I put the menus in. So I should not be putting the bread on channel 900. And I think that's the only place you would see the bread listed, because it's not on the weekly menu that we send out. And the daily menu, you only see it the night before. So unless that's the place that we're talking about, because that's when the decisions are made. We print that menu the night before each day, right? Because it goes out with your meal tonight for tomorrow. So part of that could be my problem, but because oftentimes the breads change, because it's, according to my cooks, they don't think it's an integral part of the menu. They don't realize I was born in Pennsylvania and we had bread on the table at every meal. It is very important to me. Anyways, I will certainly get with them though and make sure that the bread that is listed, that there is, it should be available for everyone. Let's see. It says quite often requested items for home delivery are not filled as requested. And I think I mentioned that earlier. We work on that daily. Certainly, the cooks do the boxes, the servers gather everything else. It's constant that Wendy and Matt and Paula and myself work with the servers every day to make sure that they're gathering everything that they need and that they're getting everything that you've requested on your menus. Proteins, chicken are overcooked, making most of them impalatable, hard to even cut. And I said, working on it, we're temping it in the kitchen. They continue to cook in the box. I think I addressed that earlier too. It's a tough one because I can't send things out not temped properly. We continue to work on it. And then the last one it says, can we have more healthy vegetables offered? Way too many unhealthy starches, mashed potatoes, white rice, pastas, fries. Please more brown rice, rice pilaf, healthy pastas, pintos, quinoa, couscous. And I said, as we write those menus, we try to incorporate as many of those things as possible. It's funny, as we write menus, probably it's the hardest thing we do, writing menus, right? Because you can't repeat anything, for days at a time. You always have to have the proper coloring. You got to design the plate in your mind before as you're writing it, what's it going to look like? We don't want it all white. We don't want it all red. We don't want it all orange. You got to make sure that those choices are going to be colorful on the plate because we eat with our eyes. But then the minute I say, okay, well, then we're not going to serve green beans, people go, no, don't take my green beans away. Okay, all right. Well, then we won't offer well, no, don't take that because I like that one too. That's my other favorite. It's a constant struggle. We talked about, taking this off and putting that in its place, or taking this off, putting that in its place. Well, don't take that because that's the one I like. And it's a continuation of things. 500 people every day. We all have different likes and dislikes and wishes. And we continue to do the best we can with meeting your needs. And this has been fun. Carl, thank you. Oh, you got that okay. There you go. Here.
All right, there you go. All right.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Gordy. Some people like scrapple and other people like liver mush, but we gotta be. Dee will be here in just a second. What we do for reheating, and I'm not a chef, and I don't want to contradict. I can't contradict Gordy, but we reheat it for maybe 2 minutes, but at half power. This gives the time for the temperature to circulate throughout the whole meal. But anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Oh, one other thing. Sometimes people are very generous with their criticism, but, once in a while, give somebody an attaboy too. I mean, these guys on the culinary work very, very, very hard. So, they deliver the food, they have a nice big smile, and they're just kids. So give out an attaboy once in a while. And now I have to introduce Dee. I met Dee last Friday night in the hallway, and just in your mind, conceive of the fact that your spouse calls up at 5:30 saying, my boss and their family is coming over for dinner tonight at 7. That's the way Dee looked. Because she got a phone call, when was it? 4:40, that says, guess what? Tomorrow's the big day, you're going to get your shots. Welcome, Dee. Thank you.
Good morning. Is everybody else tired from listening to Gordy, or is that just me? I'm afraid that Gordy probably said, I have to go before Dee because she rambles. Ha! Ha! That's what you probably said, right? Yes. So yeah, it's been a busy year. How about that? It's just been a busy year. Gordy's right. It's been almost a year. I gave my first presentation on COVID, I believe it was March 2nd. We had a meeting in this room that was fully packed to discuss this virus we were hearing about, some of the safety. And then after that, it just became a steady whirlwind of change. It became so much a whirlwind of change that change became the new normal. It was what's going to change today. And one of the funny comments about when Gordy said we were notified at 2 o'clock on a Thursday that we would start doing all home delivery starting at 4:30 that same day, we got another call about 3:30 saying, well, y'all can wait till tomorrow if you want to. We were like, no, we've already got this. So, but that's kind of how it's been through this whole thing. I wanted to kind of give you a recap of what COVID has done before I get to some of the issues that Carl has shared with me. To date, we've had 29 resident cases. We currently have no resident cases. Our first case from the resident population was the first week of May. So we've had 29 since then. We've had 48 cases of staff positives. 2 of those are still active. We are constantly calling you. I know those phone calls at first started a flurry of activity, and now it's just like, oh, it's another phone call. And I apologize for that, but that is part of the communications that we want to get out to you. It also allows you to know if there's a change in something. Although all we mention to you is if it's a clinical or non-clinical person, we want you to know that it's impacted an area in our community. As Gordy said, it's not unheard of to have to send 8 people home after an exposure. Acts as one of the strictest guidelines for COVID positives and for exposure. I've talked to other places, even hospitals, we're stricter than they are. We send people home if there's been 15 minutes of less than 6 feet interaction with a COVID positive. Even with a mask on, even if those 15 minutes are cumulative over a 24-hour period, which is a lot. We're blessed compared to some of our other sister communities with a very large kitchen. People can have workstation areas separated, but still there's things you do side by side that when we start doing all of our contact exposure, we realize quickly it's going to impact the team. I also want you to know what our testing, because many of you, unless we're out doing testing in independent living, you may not be aware of how much testing we're doing weekly, daily. Because of Polk County's percentage, the last one I saw was 13% positivity rate, we have to test our Willowbrook Court and Oak Ridge Terrace employees 2 times a week. That's cumbersome. We do one of those as a molecular, and then we do one of those as a rapid. Employees that are not tested on schedule are not able to come to work. That also impacts staffing. We also have to test anyone under the age of 23 one time a week. So if they're working in the healthcare, that's already taken care of. But for many of our servers that don't work in healthcare, they're just in independent living, we have to make sure they're tested weekly. For a lot of our young people, this is a job they have in addition to school and sometimes another job. So we have to make sure we're meeting their needs, setting up appropriate times. If you ever want to sit here and watch the number of drive-through testing we do, it's pretty incredible. Our guardhouse continues to be a major screening area. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate the fact that many of you are patient and kind with the screeners. I do have some residents and staff, I know it's frustrating and it's time consuming and it stops your in and out, but it has caught so many temperatures, it's caught so many possible exposures, and it's also allowed to have a dialogue about symptoms, what exposures are, and things like that. And I appreciate your patience with that. I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I see that going away. Some type of screening at the guardhouse. When we did get that notice Thursday at 4:40, it was kind of like a mind-numbing moment for a minute. And then this incredible team just flexed and said, this is what we're going to do, and we did it. To date, of our 380 independent living residents, 309 have been vaccinated. 70 of those were done outside, and we did 239 on Friday. Now, there may still be some people that were vaccinated outside that have not provided us with their card. I'm not counting those yet. Until I see that card, I'm still leaving them in my unvaccinated. I have had 4 declinations from individuals. And then we've also had a small group who received the antibody infusion while they were COVID positive to help them recover. Because of that infusion, they're not allowed to have the vaccine for 90 days. So that's another group. So right now, as of today, we're currently at 81.3% with first vaccination. I believe we have 2 residents who are recent move-ins who have had both vaccines. But I think those are the only ones I'm aware of that have had 2. In our health care, we've had 26 out of 28 of those residents receive vaccinations. And in our assisted living, 25 out of 28 on that floor have also received the vaccination. Those numbers are incredible. So again, some of those are declinations in the healthcare, and some of those are from that antibody infusion. I want to remind you, if you did receive the vaccine here on Friday, your follow-up date will be February 26th. And yes, first floor, we will start with you all. On January 11th, we vaccinated a lot of staff. We vaccinated our Willowbrook Court residents, our assisted living residents, and we also did a handful of spouses in independent living who have a spouse in one of the healthcare arenas. Those people will receive their booster, their second shot, on February 8th. I also plan on having a few people come to me and say, okay, I'm ready to get mine on February 8th. If you did not get your vaccination here this past Friday, and if you have not brought me your card, or Brandy in the wellness office, a copy of your card from going outside, I'll be calling you to see if you want your first shot on February 8th. It's not enough people that we're going to have to go hall to hall to hall, but I think we'll be able to kind of come up with our numbers and what that looks like based on those phone calls. If you do get your first shot on February 8th, your booster will be on March 8th. I know it's a lot of dates. They dance in my head like sugar plum fairies. Not really. They don't, not like a fairy at all. It's a lot. Over the weekend, I think I had one resident that had some side effects that nursing took care of, but other than that, no reports. Staff is another issue. So a lot of you have asked about phase 3, and this 70% is that staff and residents. While watching those journey forwards, those episodes, I will say it sounds to me like they're looking at independent living residents to reach that 70% for the residents to be able to move to phase 3. What I am anxiously awaiting is a similar type program to be shown to the employees about what phase 3 will mean to them. That has not come out yet, but I am hopeful that will come out before this February 8th date so I can encourage more of my employees. To date, I've only had 42.7% of my employees receive the vaccine. Now, when you watch the news, that's still higher than a lot of places. Healthcare is usually running about 30 to 35%. So, and we're not just healthcare, but I kind of compare it to that. And I'm not unhappy with 42.7, but we still need to encourage. We're providing all the information we can to employees. We're trying to dispel some of the myths about the vaccine so they understand the importance. But that's still a work in progress. There are a lot of scams related to this vaccine. You've probably gotten phone calls, you may have seen emails. There's a lot going on about this vaccine. Please be very wary of anyone who calls you asking any personal information, okay? They're wanting to say they're trying to develop survey for this, for this county, getting numbers together. None of that is a valid issue. Please be very conscious of those. Today I saw there's a new scam out that says you can order a card that says that you don't have to wear your mask if you receive this card, and you have to pay for it. I mean, all of this stuff is fraudulent. Do not participate in those. We did have a survey go out on email to all the residents from ACTS. I realized they were going out Friday, and in the midst of getting everything else done, I did not give you a heads up, and I apologize. But it is from the Adventure Group. ACTS's name is down in there, along with Jim Petty, our Senior VP of Business Development. So if you receive that survey from Adventure Group, it is a legitimate survey. I haven't done it myself. Just been a little busy, So some of the concerns that Carl brought to me, and I want to talk about. Number one was the lake. I'm very pleased to say that this spring we will begin work on the lake. We've already had the contractor approved, money and everything, so that whole bidding process. It is going to be my initial, and what I've always said is we would work on the feeder springs first. Well, we're not. We're going to start getting some of that out of the lake first. Then we'll go back and redo all of those feeder streams because those rocks have all shifted. The company we'll be using is called the Muck Men, which I may see if they have a job available, just because I like saying that. The Muck Men. Please understand this will be a process. You'll see some activity down there. We have to get ready for it. A big piece of this is moving this and putting the sediment on our property and letting it dry out. There's all kinds of restrictions because we're disturbing ecosystems, and this company has to abide by all of those. I do not have a date on the hallway to B building, and I'll be honest with you, it was a huge push of ours, but then when COVID hit, it has not been. I apologize, but I do not have a date on getting that done. We know it has to be done. We walk it all the time too. It's dismal, and I know it has to be fixed. Guest apartments was another concern. I am not sure when guest apartments will open back up. I don't remember that being part of that phase 3 on that video. I'll go back and look, but I don't remember that coming out about that. But we will reopen with 4 guest apartments. Now, the big difference is they were all going to be 1 bedrooms. We will not have a 2-bedroom guest apartment. Typically, if you look over the past few years, only 1 person has stayed in that 2-bedroom. Occasionally, we might have a set of siblings or family, but rarely. It's typically one person. So we will open with 2 one-bedrooms in A and 2 one-bedrooms in B. When I get notification that we'll open that up, I'll let you know. Right now, we are letting people whose houses may have sold before their apartments were ready move in. That's always been something we've been able to try to do for people, and especially during COVID, it's become a nice benefit for them. At one point, we were talking about our home health getting Medicare certified. I don't think we've moved ahead on that, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know that that's going to be in our near future going to that. But what I will tell you is if you do need a Medicare certified home health agency for caregiving in your apartment, if you will let me know, I can meet with that agency and tell them what our requirements are, including weekly test results. We're not saying that no one can come in. Your private duty medical care can come in. They just need to follow what our restrictions are and our screening protocol. I had a concerning question about Michelle Marino and the primary care physician services office. Appointments have had to be moved, and we have had to shift. I think the longest I know, someone who recently moved in who wanted to switch to her services had to wait about 2 weeks for an appointment. That's not usually been our services record. We've typically gotten people in quicker, but as I mentioned, when we've had exposures, things like that, offices have had to be shut down. Also, that office is the one that manages all of this employee testing. So if it's the date of me getting employees all tested to meet our CMS requirements for healthcare, I need to get employees tested. I did have a comment about phone calls not being returned. I've asked the staff in there, they're not aware. So I don't know about that. I'll have to find out about that, or if you have a name, I'll follow up. Huh? Okay, thank you. Finally, I know many people were upset about Debbie Pegg's resignation. She gave us a 2-week notice, with Thursday being her last day. Right at the 11th hour, she rescinded her resignation and filed for a medical leave. So she is not left. She is on a medical leave right now. Unfortunately, we had already started the interview process because we know how vital that role is to everyone. We've had to cut back on that because now it's not a position to offer. But we may not be able to have coverage at that desk every day. We were trying our best, but that might not be possible 5 days a week like you're used to. Her leave will protect her job, so I cannot replace that position at this time. So what you'll see is probably a variety of us sitting at that desk, maybe knowing the answers, maybe not. But that is where that position stands right now. We'll keep you up to date on that. She did have a family situation she needed to take care of, and that is one of the processes that family medical leave protects your job to allow you to take care of those situations. And I think that's all I have. I had all my numbers, testing, and I think that's all I have. And then Carl walks off. So I guess Pam?
Well, yes. Well, we're very grateful to have you here, and Gordy. Thank you for the Jell-O that I ask for every day. And I know that Dee and the staff is doing a fantastic job of keeping us safe. I have not gained any weight, but so it's good for the food and not overeating.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Dee. And please get back to me whether you think Tera should go to sleep until after this crisis is over, or if we should continue operation.
I did ask Dee, just before the meeting, if we could meet in the bistro, the room that has the doors going out and the coffee area, which could add another 10 people. And she said yes. So we may be able to do that next month as a regular board meeting, and we'll have to figure that out.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for tuning in and joining us, or being here and joining us. Have a good week. Bye-bye.